Hey guys, tonight we're stepping quietly into the humid haze of 17th century Batavia, present day Jakarta, where the Dutch East India Company hums with colonial ambition. Cinnamon dust clings to your sleeves, and the smell of boiling clove oil lingers on every gust of tropical breeze. Ships creak in the harbor. Mosquitoes buzz like tiny bureaucrats. You're sweating through your doublet, and someone has just handed you a fruit that looks like it wants to fight you. It's a pineapple. And you, well, you have no idea whether to eat it, sell it, worship it, or run from it. That's right. Pineapples weren't just sweet symbols of wealth. For many Dutch traders, they were a source of confusion, obsession, and occasionally, absolute dread. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from, and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive in Batavia just as the morning market flutters to life. Porters chant as they unload silks, jars of nutmeg, and porcelain bowls painted with dragons that glare at you a little too confidently. Chickens run underfoot. The smell of seawater and old garlic curls up your nose. You've been sent here by the Dutch East India Company, VOC for short, not to trade gold, not to command ships. You're here to assist in botanical assessments, which sounds impressive until you realize you're the one carrying the samples and getting bitten by every insect between here and Sumatra. A merchant waves you over. His fingers are sticky. In his hands, a fruit you've never seen before. Spiky, crowned, smells like sugar and vinegar got into a drunken brawl. This, he whispers, came from the Spice Islands. But it's dangerous. You blink. Dangerous. It's fruit. He nods solemnly. One man ate a slice and refused to talk for 3 days. Historians still argue whether pineapples arrived in Southeast Asia via Spanish Manila galleons or earlier trade networks involving Portuguese sailors. What's agreed upon by the mid-1600s? Pineapples were rare, coveted, and deeply misunderstood by Europeans. Back in the Netherlands, they were whispered about in the same tone usually reserved for sapphires, tropical fevers, and Venetian glass. And here you are, holding one. Sticky fingers. Slight fear. You wrap it in cloth, avoiding the spines. You carry it through the market as locals glance, smirk, and mutter. One woman snickers behind her hand. Another makes the sign of the cross. You reach your post at the Dutch compound. A squat, sunburnt building behind a fence that's mostly for decoration. The administrator is waiting. Balding. Sweating. Smells like gin and disappointment. What's this? He asks. You present the fruit like it's a crown jewel. Ananas comosus. You try. That's the Latin name you remember from a passing missionary. He frowns. It looks aggressive. You nod. It might be. He leans in to sniff it, then jerks back, muttering, "It smells like meat that forgot how to be meat." Still, he takes it, places it on a silver tray, calls for a clerk. "Send word to Amsterdam," he declares. "Tell them we have acquired one." You stand there awkwardly, trying to decide if this means your job is done or just beginning. The administrator's wife wanders in, eyes the pineapple with mild horror, and says, "Why is it so smug?" Quirky fact, in Batavia, pineapples were sometimes left on doorsteps, not as gifts, but as ominous warnings from rival traders. Like, watch yourself. We know your routes. Also, enjoy the fiber. You return to your quarters that evening with a sunburned nose and questions that won't settle. Why do people flinch when they see this fruit? Why did the gardener insist it had ghosts in the smell? Why did a clerk quietly whisper, "Don't let it rot inside the walls"? You lie on a wooden cot that creaks like an old diplomat and listen to the soft, wet thuds of geckos hunting moths on the ceiling. Outside, the jungle breathes slowly. Inside, your mind races, not with images of treasure or glory, but of a fruit sitting silently on a tray. Like it knows something you don't. You close your eyes. Tomorrow, you'll slice it. Maybe. Morning arrives with the kind of wet heat that makes your sheets feel judgmental. You wake up sticky, unrefreshed, and vaguely guilty. Though for what? You're not sure. Something about the way the pineapple stared at you in your dreams. It had eyes. Too many eyes. You shuffle to the main hall of the compound, where the administrator already has the fruit displayed like a captured enemy general. It sits on a pedestal, resting atop lace, trimmed cloth that was clearly meant for something more sacred, or at least less acidic. He gestures for you to approach. "Well," he asks, "how do we eat it?" You blink. This is a trick question. You've seen sketches. Sort of. Heard stories. Barely. But no one in Batavia seems to have actually eaten a pineapple. Everyone's either passed them along, feared them, or used them as a centerpiece until they exploded in a sugary rot that stained the wallpaper and lingered for weeks. One assistant reaches for a knife. Another gasps. The administrator holds up a hand. "Wait." He stares at the fruit like it's about to confess. "We should document this," he says, "in case something happens." A clerk is summoned. Paper rustles. Ink pots are filled. And just like that, you're part of an unofficial, extremely nervous pineapple dissection committee. You start by cutting off the crown. The sound it makes is wrong, somewhere between a snap and a slurp. One clerk turns pale. Another quietly excuses herself to check on the tea, which is code for flea. You continue. Remove the tough skin. Reveal the golden flesh inside. Someone whispers, "It looks damp." Another replies, "It looks like it's trying too hard." Eventually, you carve a slice. Thin. Quivering. Smells like sugar mixed with seawater and potential betrayal. The administrator picks it up delicately between thumb and forefinger. You all lean in. He takes a bite. And then, he freezes. The room stills. A fan squeaks in the corner. Someone knocks over a cup. He swallows. Slowly. And says, "Huh. Not bad." Everyone exhales. Back in Europe, this same fruit could sell for the cost of a servant's annual wage. In England, people rented them. In Holland, they painted them. But here, sweating under ceiling fans and bureaucratic tension, it tastes like something that probably isn't worth the shipping risk. But also might be. Later that day, you're invited to the administrator's home for a formal tasting. The pineapple has been gently rinsed, arranged in a crescent on a Dutch porcelain plate, and placed beside sugared tamarind and cloves. The guests include other VOC officials, one Jesuit botanist who won't stop sneezing, and a woman who claims she can smell lies. She stares at the pineapple, then at you. It doesn't belong here, she murmurs. You nod solemnly. Neither do we. She seems satisfied. The Jesuit sneezes again. A toast is made. Spoons are distributed. You all take tiny bites. Eyes widen. Lips purse. It's delicious. But no one can admit that. Because if it's delicious, then what? Then this terrifying, armored fruit has won. A debate breaks out. Is it a fruit or a weapon? A gift or a challenge? Edible or performative? The Jesuit snorts. I've read that in Peru. They say it sings at night. The woman gasps. Mine did. You try to change the subject by complimenting the tablecloth. There's a story some dockworkers tell. That pineapples can predict storms. If the leaves curl inward overnight, you lash down shutters, boats, and expectations. No one knows where the story started, but everyone remembers the time it curled, and the wind came just before dawn. You head home in the dark, ears full of tropical frogs and distant laughter. The administrator walks with you part of the way. I'm not saying I'm scared of it, he says casually, but I did have a nightmare about its crown becoming a spider. You nod. Reasonable. I'm not weak, he adds. Of course not. You reach your door. He turns to go, then pauses. Do you think it knows? You blink. The fruit, he whispers. Do you think it knows we're talking about it? You smile politely and close your door. Then double lock it, just in case. The next morning begins with a scream. Not a dramatic one, more of a startled yelp, muffled by the awkward acoustics of colonial architecture. You peek out your window to find two clerks huddled by the compound's fruit shed. One is pointing at the ground. The other keeps muttering. It moved. It moved. It moved. You throw on your damp overshirt, now permanently tinted with nutmeg stains and sweat, and step outside into the already steaming air. And there it is. A pineapple. The same one, you think. But somehow, wrong. The skin has darkened. A sticky syrup oozes slowly from its base, forming a slow amber puddle. The scent is sweeter now, richer, deeper, slightly fermented. A scent that suggests sugar with opinions. A trail of ants marches toward it with the calm resolve of professional undertakers. You kneel down to look closer. No twitching, no blinking. Just juice. It's weeping. One clerk whispers behind you. It's plotting, says the other. You say nothing. You just gently nudge the fruit with your gloved hand, and it squishes slightly. It's softening from the inside, which means, by this climate's rules, its time is almost up. Someone groans. Another pineapple lost. There's a reason this keeps happening. In heat like this, a pineapple is never just a fruit. It's a race against nature. A tropical time bomb dressed as dessert. Even in perfect conditions, it might only last 3 or 4 days. And that's if no ants find it. Or humidity. Or ghosts. You've heard that in the upper VOC offices, there's a silent rule: never name your pineapple. Never get attached. It's just cargo. It's just flesh. That rule isn't always followed. Today, you've been reassigned to join a trade envoy traveling inland, to a plantation where Dutch horticulturists are attempting to grow pineapples themselves. The ride takes hours. The cart's wheels groan across muddy paths. You pass rice paddies that glimmer like fish scales, banana trees heavy with gossip, and hills that seem to lean just slightly away from you. The local guide tells stories along the way. One about a pineapple that grew teeth. One about a cursed harvest where every fruit screamed the name of a missing sailor. You're not sure if they're legends or warnings. You choose to smile politely and nod. Then you quietly adjust the small knife hidden in your boot, just in case. Eventually, you arrive at the plantation. It stretches across a hillside, orderly rows of squat, spiny pineapple plants, each one resembling a defensive hedgehog mid-thought. You're greeted by the plantation supervisor, a sun-scorched man with a tired smile and a hat that looks like it's been through 2 small wars. "Welcome," he says. "Careful where you walk. They bite." He means the plants. You hope. He leads you along narrow rows, pointing out their efforts to keep pests away. Ashes, salt circles, music. Do the pineapples like music? You ask. He doesn't laugh. We don't play it for them. You pass one particularly large plant. The pineapple growing from it is massive, golden, heavy. The leaves curl upward like fingers in mid-prayer. "That one," he says, lowering his voice. "We leave alone." "Why?" He glances sideways. It hums. That night, you dine with the plantation staff. Long table. Low lanterns. Too much roasted cassava. Not enough questions. A pineapple sits in the center of the table. No one touches it. Instead, they drink around it. Talk around it. Treat it like a small, judgmental guest no one invited. One trader tells a story about a pineapple that caused a duel. Another swears hers made a Portuguese captain hallucinate a map that didn't exist. A third insists she once sliced into one and saw her future marriage in the pattern of its flesh. She's still unmarried. Someone passes you a glass of pineapple wine. It's cloudy, sweet, slightly aggressive. You take a sip. Your right eye twitches. You finish the glass. You're not sure if it's the wine, the lantern glow, or the tropical fatigue, but everything feels slightly tilted. You excuse yourself early. On the walk to your guest quarters, the night hums with insects and thick, lazy heat. And somewhere, faint, barely perceptible, you swear you hear it. A low vibration. The plant. The one on the hill. Still humming. You lie in bed with a pillow that smells like colonial mold and cloves. The ceiling fan above you is slower than your thoughts. And all you can think of is that one pineapple. The heavy one. The quiet one. The one that's waiting. You whisper to yourself, maybe I should have just studied nutmeg. You drift off mid-thought, which is probably for the best. You return to Batavia sunburned, half seduced by the jungle, and carrying the distinct sense that the pineapples are winning. The administrator meets you at the gates of the VOC compound like you've returned from war. He squints past you and asks, "Did it rot?" You nod. He sighs. "They always do." Still, he seems oddly satisfied, like failure was expected, but the report of it brings closure. He waves you inside. Another one just arrived. Looks angry. You don't ask what that means. You follow him to his office, where the new pineapple is perched on a silk napkin like a royal guest nobody wants to speak first. This one is different. Smaller, tighter, with darker skin and a sourer scent. like sugar pretending to be vinegar. It watches the room. Or maybe that's just you projecting again. We're sending this one to Amsterdam, he says. Double crate, lined with cloves and prayer. He pauses. You'll be packing it. Of course you will. By now, the stories have outpaced the fruit itself. You hear them in the canteen, in the supply yard, whispered between stacks of cinnamon and indigo cloth. A guard claims a pineapple made him dream in French. A secretary swears one melted a silver spoon just by being near it. A priest warns that pineapples don't rot. They evolve. You try to ignore it. You really do. But then you find a drawing in the clerk's ledger, a pineapple, crudely sketched, but with teeth. You close the book gently. You don't ask. You don't want to know. That night, you're invited to a merchant's home, a large villa just outside the main compound, where trade winds pass lazily through the shutters and everything smells faintly of wax and tropical fatigue. The merchant, Van Noorden, greets you with the enthusiasm of a man who's been waiting all day to show you something. This way, he says, and leads you into a drawing room filled with fine furniture, a golden harp that's never been played, and, of course, a pineapple. It sits on a velvet pillow. We call him Cornelius. You pause. You named it. Van Noorden nods solemnly. He's the third. The first exploded. The second, we don't talk about. You nod, as if that clears everything up. His wife enters, carrying a silver tray of biscuits and a look of long, suffering composure. His daughter enters behind her, curtsies to the fruit, and exits. Everyone acts like this is normal. The pineapple glistens slightly under the candlelight. You swear it pulses. Some say, Van Noorden begins, that if you slice one open too quickly, it attracts lightning. You open your mouth. He holds up a finger. Don't test it. You nibble a biscuit and make a quiet mental note to update your will. There's a belief among the sailors. Superstition, really. That pineapples are vessels. Not for spirits exactly, but for experiences. That they absorb the memories of the heat, the soil, the ship, the hands that touched them. That biting into one can give you dreams of someone else's past. Which might explain why some captains banned them on board. Said they distracted the crew. Made men nostalgic for places they'd never seen. You lie awake that night and think about that. Not in a poetic way. In a why does this fruit feel smarter than me kind of way. Your next task arrives in the form of a crate, a list, and an unreasonable amount of twine. The administrator stands over you like a priest preparing for a complicated wedding. Pack it carefully, he says. You do. You oil the inside of the crate with clove essence. You line it with padded silk, stitched with VOC insignias. You place the pineapple at the center. Nest it gently. Tie it in place. Seal the wood with resin. And stamp the company wax into the lid. Someone behind you hums a funeral tune. The crate is lifted, labeled, and loaded onto the next merchant ship bound for Amsterdam. It smells faintly of ambition and something slightly overripe. You stand on the dock and watch it sail away. A clerk beside you says, I give it 6 days before it turns to wine. You nod. Then you whisper, mostly to yourself. Let's hope the wine doesn't talk. You try to get back to your normal duties. Logging pepper shipments. Inspecting barrels of turmeric. Pretending you didn't just spend a week tracking the psychological arc of a piece of fruit. But it's no use. You're marked now. Everywhere you go, someone stops you to ask about pineapples. Did you see one melt a knife? Did it really hum? Is it true that someone in the ledger office started speaking Portuguese in her sleep after peeling one? You want to deny it. Set the record straight. But part of you isn't sure anymore. Part of you wonders what else they're capable of. That's when the administrator assigns you your next post. You'll be working with Peter. He says, ship's doctor. Curious mind. Terrible handwriting. You nod slowly. What are we doing? Studying pineapple biology. He replies. There's a pause. Then, quietly, again. Peter turns out to be young, eager, and terrifyingly confident. His sleeves are always rolled up, his hair perpetually windblown, and he has the relentless optimism of someone who hasn't seen the things you've seen. Botany, he announces, is the science of courage. You nod in the kind of way that says, I would like to leave now. He claps his hands. We begin with dissection. Of course you do. You're given gloves, knives, a strange brass magnifying lens, and a stack of old notes from the previous pineapple studies, none of which make any real sense. One entry just says, flesh dense, smells like false happiness. Another is a charcoal sketch of what may be a pineapple, or a lion with leaves. You start by slicing the fruit in half. The center is golden, fibrous, juicy. Peter leans over and pokes it. Resembles a star. He whispers. Or a trap. You suggest. He grins. Both. By now, word has spread. Your office is no longer just a storage room. It's the place. People wander in, claiming to be curious about the science. But mostly they want to see you cut one open. They watch as if something might leap out. Or whisper. Or spit. One man brings a small bell. Just in case. He says. Another leaves behind a clove. Scented candle for protection. You light it. Not because you believe in curses, but because, frankly, it can't hurt. You and Peter take turns noting everything: texture, scent, how quickly it darkens in the heat. He insists on measuring the diameter of each ring in the cross section. You just keep checking to see if the core blinks. So far, it hasn't. You consider that a victory. There's a quiet superstition forming. One no one says aloud. But everyone follows. Don't eat the last slice. They say it's where the memories collect. That every bite leading up to it is fine. But that final one, that's where the truth lives. And truth, in Batavia, is rarely safe to taste. You leave the last slice untouched. Every time. Even Peter avoids it. He claims it's for future testing. You don't argue. One night, he brings a bottle of Iraq and 2 glasses. To science, he says. You clink, drink, and sit beside an open crate where a fresh pineapple steams slightly in the corner. Not from heat. Just presence. I've been thinking, Peter says. Dangerous. You reply. He laughs. What if the fruit isn't strange? He continues. What if we are? You look at him. He's serious. What if we brought all this? Meaning, fear, expectation, and the fruit is just fruit. You nod. Then tilt your head. Then why does it smell like secrets? He doesn't answer. You both finish your drinks in silence. By now, the scent of pineapple follows you everywhere. It's in your clothes, your notebooks, your dreams. Sometimes you smell it on someone before they enter a room. Sometimes you wake up and swear it's in your pillow. And once, just once, you catch a whiff on the wind and turn your head toward the docks before the ship even arrives. It's always the same. Sweet. Rotting. Watching. It begins with a negotiation. Not over spice. Not over land. But over a pineapple. You sit at a long teak table beneath a creaking fan, sweating through your collar as two merchants argue over ownership of a fruit no one seems entirely sure they want. It was delivered to my warehouse. One insists, with my name on the crate. The other counters. The pineapple sits between them like an unbothered diplomat. Prickly. Golden. Inscrutable. You glance at Peter, who mouths, "Don't touch it." You weren't going to. Probably. The administrator tries to defuse the situation with logic, contracts, and a very long scroll. But the moment the fruit is nudged half an inch toward one side of the table, the other merchant stands up. "This is theft," he declares. "It's lunch," the other mutters. You sigh? This is going to get ugly. The pineapple becomes Exhibit A in what will later be called the fruit dispute. 3 days of hearings, 7 witness testimonies, and one judge who keeps licking his lips and muttering about pineapple compote. You're called to testify. You explain what you know, where it came from, how it was packed, what the manifest said. Then you're asked what condition it was in when it arrived. You hesitate. Unervingly intact. You finally say. The courtroom murmurs. Someone takes notes. You glance at the pineapple. It hasn't blinked. Yet. Back at the compound, Peter is trying to chart something he calls rot velocity. You're less enthusiastic. It's fruit. Peter. It's data. He corrects, drawing concentric circles that look suspiciously like crop signs. You both pause when a clerk bursts in, holding a memo. There's been an incident. Of course there has. You follow her to the port, where a sailor is being restrained by 2 guards. His eyes are wild. He smells like brandy in panic. "She spoke to me," he shouts. They try to calm him. He resists. "She said my name." In Dutch. Everyone glances toward the offending pineapple. Still wrapped. Untouched. Not even particularly ripe. You squat beside it. Smell it. Same as always, sharp. Heady. Vaguely sweet. Like sugar trying to remember something bitter. The sailor quiets. Then, softly, almost apologetically, he says, "She called me Joris. My mother called me that." You check his manifest. His name is Willem. You ask no further questions. At this point, the administrator suggests implementing a new protocol. Each pineapple must be documented, weighed, sketched, and accompanied by a behavioral report. You ask what goes in that report. He shrugs. If it stares. If it rolls. If it speaks. You nod. Then suggest assigning someone else. He shakes his head. You're already trained. Wonderful. There's a pineapple in the storeroom now that no one will touch. It came from a plantation further east, accompanied by a shipment of cloves and one frantic note that simply read, "Don't look it in the eyes." It doesn't have eyes. Officially. But no one wants to get too close. Van Noorden offers to buy it. Says it'll match the upholstery in his breakfast room. You decline on his behalf. Silently. Then you lock the storeroom. Just to be safe. The next morning, the merchants return. The negotiation resumes. Only now, both parties claim they never wanted the pineapple to begin with. It's cursed, one says. It's bruised, says the other. You open the crate. It's neither. In fact, it looks better, shinier, like it enjoyed the attention. You don't say that aloud. You simply wrap it, log its condition, and write one note in the behavioral report. Seems smug. Peter agrees. You both go home early that day. Because frankly, you need a break. And maybe a good exorcism. You wake to news of a theft. The guards are flustered. The storeroom is unlocked. The crate is gone. Which one? You ask, already dreading the answer. They tell you. The smug one. Of course. You close your eyes and count to 10. You consider faking a tropical fever. Or maybe joining a monastery. One without fruit. Instead, you dress, drink something approximating coffee, and follow the trail of syrupy footprints leading away from the compound. They curve through the market, past baskets of ginger, under drying sheets of dyed indigo, and straight into the back room of a tavern you very much hope to never enter again. Inside, the air is thick with sweat, cinnamon, and lies. And there, on a table sticky with spilled rum and ambition, sits the missing pineapple. A man stands beside it, holding a knife. He's shirtless, possibly shoeless, almost certainly clueless. I want it in a card game, he declares. You glance around. The crowd leans in, breathless. He grins. And now, I eat the crown. Someone gasps. You nearly pass out. No one eats the crown, you say, a little too loudly. He pauses. Why not? You search for a reason that doesn't involve ancient doom. It's decorative. That seems to satisfy him. He shifts the knife to the base instead. Slices down. The fruit spills open with a wet sound that makes two men in the corner cross themselves. Someone mutters, "It's bleeding." It's not. It's just juice. Probably. The man lifts a slice to his lips. Takes a bite. Chews. Chews. Stops. His eyes widen. You brace yourself. He swallows. Then says, in perfect, unaccented Dutch, "My name is Wilhelmus. I was born in Delft. I died in fire." Everyone freezes. Even the pineapple seems to pause. He shakes his head. What? What was that? You step forward carefully. Put down the fruit. He does. He sits and begins to weep. You retrieve the pineapple. Wrap it. Carry it back in silence. By now, there's an unspoken understanding throughout the city. Pineapples are not food. They are events. You don't own one. You survive one. Still, people want them. A merchant offers you a sack of silver for a slightly bruised specimen. A noblewoman sends a letter requesting the least temperamental fruit currently available. A priest offers a blessing in exchange for a bite. You decline. Politely. Then less politely. Then with guards. The administrator begins locking them in a cellar under the archives, next to the emergency rations and the ghost ledger. You receive a key. You do not want this key. It feels warm, like it knows. That evening, you receive a visitor. It's the sailor. The one who claimed the fruit spoke his name. He looks better, calmer, still a little sunburned around the sole. He offers you something wrapped in cloth. A journal. My grandfather's, he says. Sailed from Suriname. Used to talk to pineapples. You open the book. Page after page of drawings. Notes. Musings. Most of it incomprehensible. But one phrase stands out. Written over and over. In different inks and trembling hands. Don't eat the core. You close the book. Thank him. Lock it in your desk. And light 2 candles instead of 1. The next morning, the administrator is pacing. We've got a problem, he says. You wait. A new shipment just arrived. For pineapples. You nod. They were packed perfectly. But one of them. He trails off. You lean in. Was already peeled. You stare. He holds out a note. It reads, found like this. No knife. Still fresh. You sit down. Hard. The administrator pours you a drink. It's not even noon. He pours one for himself. Neither of you say it aloud. But you both think the same thing. The fruit is learning. The first pamphlet appears at the chapel door. For pages. Cheap ink. Poor grammar. Smells faintly of nutmeg and spite. Title: The Fruit of the Fall, Tropical Temptations, and the Devil's Armor. You skim it. The author, anonymous, of course, claims that pineapples are God's warning in spiked skin. That their symmetry seduces. That their sweetness leads men to ruin. There are hand-drawn illustrations of pineapples whispering to monks, hypnotizing sailors, leading women astray. One is shown sitting on a throne made of bones, wearing a crown. No explanation. You hand it to Peter. He chuckles once, then coughs. This actually explains a few things. He mutters. You're not sure if he's joking. He might not be. The next day, another pamphlet appears. This one longer. Angrier. Includes a guide for spiritual pineapple disposal, which involves salt, prayer, and burying the fruit upside down during a waning moon. Someone pins a copy to the gate of the VOC compound. Someone else brings it in and requests a leave of absence. You ask where he's going. Somewhere colder. He whispers. You don't blame him. That evening, you're invited to a dinner hosted by the Jesuit botanist. His house smells like old paper and unwashed hope. He's laid out local herbs, strange roots, and, of course, a pineapple centerpiece. This one, he says proudly, was blessed by 3 separate priests. You nod, trying not to make eye contact with the fruit. He serves tea, then leans forward. Do you think, he says softly, that they're testing us? You blink. Who? The pineapples. You blink again. He sips his tea. It's just the structure, the precision, the patterning. His fingers flutter in the air. It's too intentional. You consider arguing. Then you remember the peeled one. You drink your tea instead. Later that night, you walk home under a moon that looks like it's trying not to get involved. From behind a vendor's cart, you hear someone whisper. They watch from the crates. You don't turn around. You pick up your pace. You sleep with your boots on. Just in case. There's a story you remember from your first week here. Before all of this, a missionary said it at dinner. Laughing. Wine. Drunk. He claimed that in some islands, pineapples were never eaten. They were grown for dreams. Left by windows. Placed beside beds. You could whisper your desires to them. And if the fruit turned sweeter by morning, your wish would come true. You asked what happened if it turned sour. He stopped laughing. You didn't whisper right, he said. Then changed the subject. You never forgot that. You whisper nothing now. Just in case. Peter's sketches have grown stranger. At first, they were diagrams, cross sections, seed maps, spiny leaf angles. But now, curves, spirals, circles inside circles. A pineapple sliced to reveal an eye. You ask if he's sleeping. Only during thunderstorms. He replies. You decide not to press. Word arrives from Amsterdam. The crate you packed, the double, lined one, has arrived. But no one opened it. Why? Because the ship's captain demanded it be dropped into a canal the moment it docked. He claims the fruit changed shape during the voyage. And laughed. The administrator reads the letter twice. Then burns it. Just to be safe. At the chapel, someone has added pineapples to the forbidden items list, alongside unlicensed maps, improper hymnals, and mirrors taller than a priest. The bulletin board now reads, no pineapples. No exceptions. Someone crosses it out and writes, not even small ones. You light a candle. You don't know why, but it feels polite. In your room that night, you find something unsettling. Not the fruit. Not the pamphlets. Not even Peter, who occasionally talks in botanical Latin. No, it's something simpler. Your laundry. Your clean linen shirt. Smells like pineapple. You sniff again. It's faint, but it's there. You check your chest. No juice. You check your hands. No stickiness. And still, it's there. You hang the shirt outside. Then sit on your bed. And whisper, without meaning to, do you want something? The room stays quiet. But the air tastes sweet. The cordial arrives in a green glass bottle with no label and a cork that resists every tool you try. You finally open it with a spoon and too much enthusiasm, splashing a bit on your sleeve. It smells like sunshine gone wrong. Peter beams. Fermented pineapple. A gift from the clove merchants. Aged 2 weeks. Possibly blessed. Possibly. You repeat, already regretting everything. You pour a small amount. The liquid is golden, cloudy, and slightly twitchy. You swirl it. It foams, gently, like it's breathing. You both drink, and immediately regret that too. It's not bad, exactly, but it tastes like something that used to be fruit, fell in love with vinegar, and then lost all sense of direction. There's a hint of vanilla, a note of regret. You cough. Peter hiccups. You both decide to sit down. I think, he says slowly, this could be useful. You raise an eyebrow. For what? Truth. Telling rituals. Communing with ghosts. Holiday parties. You nod solemnly. Perfect for diplomatic summits. He writes something in his journal. You don't ask what. The cordial spreads through the compound like a rumor. Soon there are small bottles everywhere. On desks. Under chairs. Tucked into boots. People sip it at lunch. During meetings. In secret before Mass. One clerk says it made him remember a childhood he never had. Another claims she heard her dog speak fluent Dutch. You try it again one evening. Just a sip. Then sit by the window and listen to the wind hum in E minor. Possibly coincidence. Possibly not. There's a story that floats around now. Half legend. Half warning. That in the hills beyond the plantations, there's a grove of wild pineapples. Huge. Overripe. Buzzing softly with their own language. No one goes there. Except for the man who did. He came back barefoot, carrying a single fruit in a linen sling. Wouldn't speak for 3 days. Then whispered, "They're not alone." He now runs a candle stall and refuses to touch anything yellow. You avoid his part of the market. Van Noorden invites you to another dinner. You decline. He sends a cart. You accept. His dining room has changed. The pineapple is still there, now on a marble pedestal, lit by 2 oil lamps and flanked by silk curtains. It wears a small ribbon, possibly ceremonial. His guests speak in quiet tones. One woman brought a sketch of the fruit's aura. Another claims to have seen it blink. Not once, but rhythmically. You sip the cordial, hoping for anesthesia. Instead, you feel warmer, softer, almost nostalgic. For what? You can't quite say. A life before fruit. Maybe. A life of simple porridge and silent vegetables. The administrator calls a staff meeting. Everyone is late. Half are tipsy. He holds up a half empty bottle. This, he says, is not regulation. No one disagrees. He sighs, still, and gestures to the bottle. I've had worse. Meeting adjourned. You return to your office and find 3 pineapples waiting. No notes. No instructions. Just waiting. You close the door. Gently. Peter suggests an experiment. Blind tasting. Controlled environment. 1 fruit at a time. You agree, on the condition that he stops using the phrase fruit aura in public. The first pineapple is sweet, dense, familiar. The second, sharper, bitter near the core, makes your tongue feel like it knows something you don't. The third, you don't taste the third, because as soon as it's sliced, the room fills with the scent of pepper. You both lean in. No one breathes. It's lying. Peter whispers. You nod. You wrap it tightly. Then tighter. Then label it. Do not unwrap. Just to be safe. That night, you drink another glass of cordial. You speak aloud to no one in particular. I'd like a quiet week. Please. The lamp flickers. You take that as a maybe. You go to sleep dreaming of pineapples stacked like books, whispering in languages you don't speak, but somehow understand. The garden begins with good intentions. A test plot, they call it. Just a few rows. Enough to study growth patterns, root structures, sun preferences. They give you gloves. a journal, and a wide, brimmed hat that makes you look like a confused explorer. You'll just be observing, the administrator says. Which is code for, you're the only one we trust to get near them. Wonderful. The plot lies just beyond the compound wall, behind the pepper sheds and the tool shed no one talks about. A clearing of sun-baked soil, framed by mango trees and distant birds that never quite sound relaxed. The pineapples are small at first, spiny buds with attitudes. You water them, measure their growth. Note how some lean east, others curl inward. One plant produces a fruit in record time. You name it number 4. You don't tell anyone. Each morning, you visit. Talk aloud as you walk the rows. Not because they can hear, probably, but because it makes the silence feel less watchful. You find yourself describing the weather, your dreams, Peter's latest theory. One day you say, I think they like Bach. Then realize you said they. Not it. You don't correct yourself. By the 3rd week, 2 fruits have grown faster than expected. Their leaves stretch higher. Their skin darkens like polished brass. The gardener, an older man with sun, blistered hands, refuses to touch them. Those 2 know something, he says, without looking up. You ask what? He spits into the dirt. More than me. Fair enough. Word spreads. Again. Of course it does. People start showing up at the garden fence, peeking through, sketching, whistling softly as if the plants might respond. Someone leaves an offering, a coin, a carved figurine, a poem. Peter collects them and labels each one spiritual bribery not effective yet. You build a small fence, not to keep people out, to keep the pineapples in, just in case. It becomes a kind of quiet pilgrimage. Traders on leave, scribes with nothing better to do, missionaries pretending they dropped something nearby. One woman stands for an hour, just humming. You don't interrupt her. She seems calm. And somehow that feels rare now. One morning, number 4 is gone. No tracks. No broken stalk. Just gone. You alert the administrator. He nods, too quickly, then says, let's not tell Peter. You both agree. In its place, a perfect circle of flattened grass. Still warm to the touch. Smells faintly of nutmeg. You draw a line around it in chalk. Mark it in your journal as absence, with residue. Peter later adds, possible voluntary relocation. You don't ask what that means. You don't want to know. 2 nights later, the wind shifts. You wake to the scent of pineapple. Sharp. Green. Not sweet. It curls under your door. Lingers at the windowsill. You light a candle. Not because you're afraid, but because, well, maybe a little because you're afraid. You find no fruit in your room. But you do find 3 pineapple leaves on your desk. Fresh. Damp. Arranged in a fan. You stare at them for a long time. Then you place them gently in a box. Lock it. Put the box on a high shelf. And don't speak of it again. At dawn, you return to the garden. No new growth. No missing plants. No movement. But the soil feels alert, like it's listening. You kneel. Press your palm flat to the earth. It's warm. And you whisper, without thinking, Thank you for not taking more. They start printing coins with pineapples on them. At first, you think it's a joke. Some apprentice engraver getting clever with leftover copper. But then you see one used at the market. Then two. Then a small stack inside the offering box at the chapel. The administrator sighs. They say it represents prosperity. He mutters, flipping one over. But why does it look like it's smirking? He's not wrong. The engraving is expressive. The fruit spines curve just slightly upward. The crown tilts with suspicious confidence. You try to laugh, but it sounds nervous. Soon, pineapples are everywhere. Not the real ones. Those are still locked away, heavily documented, and whispered about. But images, painted on shutters, stamped into wax seals, woven into tapestries that hang in the nicer homes around the port. There's a silver spoon in the governor's collection shaped like a pineapple. The bowl is the body. The handle, a single spiny leaf. He says it was a gift. From whom? He doesn't say. You try not to look too closely at it. But it's hard not to. It feels familiar. You attend a small market festival one evening. Music, dancing, fruit punch with a suspicious glow. You pass a stall selling pineapple-shaped candles, pineapple dolls, pineapple masks. One child wears a papier-mâché pineapple on his head and shouts, "I am the Golden King." Everyone laughs. You do too. Mostly. Back at the compound, Peter has constructed what he calls the influence board. It's a large cork panel filled with strings, sketches, coins, notes, and, alarmingly, 2 feathers. I think we're watching a shift in symbolism, he says, pacing. A fruit becoming an idea. You gesture at the feather. What's that? He frowns. Not sure yet. You decide not to ask further. At dinner, Van Noorden unveils a new painting above his mantel. It's lavish, gilded frame, dramatic lighting. At the center, a single pineapple, placed upon a satin cushion, glowing as if lit from within. Beneath it, in flowing calligraphy, resplendence, in suffering. You ask what it means. He smiles. It means beauty has a price. Then adds, more softly, and so does control. You make a non-committal noise and pretend to admire the brushwork. But the fruit in the painting has a shadow behind it. One that doesn't quite match the angle of the light. You start noticing pineapples in dreams. Not prominently. Just there. In the corner of a room. On a shelf. Watching from the edge of a crowd. They never move. But you always know they're aware. You wake up tired. And vaguely judged. One morning, a trader arrives from the interior holding a pineapple carved from ivory. He says it was a gift. The administrator doesn't even blink anymore. Just files a report. Labels it, replicas increasing. You add a note in the margin. Imitations spreading faster than original. Peter mutters something about contagious imagery. You nod. Then wonder when exactly that phrase became normal to you. You return to the chapel. The offering table is full. Coins. Drawings. A single, perfect leaf. Someone has left a pineapple carved from soapstone. No larger than a thimble. You pick it up. It's cold. Heavy. You place it back down. Upside down. You're not sure why. It just feels safer that way. The administrator calls a meeting. We're losing control. He says, this isn't trade anymore. It's myth. No one disagrees. He looks at you. What do we do? You don't answer right away. Because the truth is, you don't know. Not really. But you suspect the fruit does. It's a story passed in low tones, told only after dark, and usually with a drink in hand. A ship's captain, old and sun, leathered, decides to do what no one else will, bring back the perfect pineapple. Not a painting, not a carving, not an idea. The real thing. Whole, unrotted, undeniably, irrevocably fresh. He makes preparations for weeks. Orders a custom crate. Ventilated. Insulated. Padded with clove. Scented linen and prayers. He recruits a crew sworn to secrecy. Takes only short range cargo. No passengers. And sets sail during what locals call the quiet tide. He leaves at dawn. And vanishes. Not for good. He returns 3 weeks later. Thinner. Quieter. Eyes a shade more sunken. The pineapple. Still in the crate. Still whole. The administrator greets him personally. Offers a handshake. A brandy. A small round of applause. The captain accepts none of it. He speaks only once. Don't open it. Then he walks away. He never sails again. The crate is locked in the archive cellar, behind 2 barred doors and a shelf of unread mission reports. You're given a key. Again. You open it exactly once. Not to touch, just to look. And what you see is perfect. Golden. Firm. Not a single blemish. Its scent clings to the air even after you close the lid. Warm sugar and mossy memory. It looks like a reward. Like proof. But you feel no relief. Only pressure. Peter visits it once a day now. He claims it's for consistency tracking. But you suspect it's something closer to reverence. One afternoon, you find him sitting beside the crate with a notebook in his lap and a glazed look in his eyes. What are you writing? You ask. He doesn't blink. Nothing. It writes itself now. You gently take the pencil from his hand. He doesn't resist. You both pretend that didn't happen. The crate begins to draw attention. First, just rumors. Then requests. From curious traders. From botanists in Amsterdam. From a private collector in Delft offering a small fortune for a single leaf. You decline them all. You guard the fruit more closely than your own journals. Because now, it's not just about preservation. It's about belief. There's a change in the compound. You feel it in the way people pause when walking past the archive cellar. In the way their eyes linger just a second too long. They don't ask questions anymore. They don't need to. The fruit is present. Known. Like weather. One evening, you sit with the crate open beside you. No gloves. No notes. No witnesses. You just sit. The scent is stronger now. Not rotting. Not aging. Just deepening. You feel calm. Curious. Vaguely apologetic. You whisper something. You're not sure what. The air shifts slightly, as if something very old just turned toward you. You close the crate. Lock it. And exhale. A letter arrives from Amsterdam. Polite. Eager. Official. They want the fruit. For study. For display. For posterity. They call it a singular opportunity to illuminate the intersections of biology and empire. You fold the letter twice. Then again. Then drop it into the fire. You do not respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. That night, Peter shows you a sketch. It's the fruit. Again. But this time, it's open. Not sliced. Bloomed. Petals instead of leaves. A center that spirals infinitely inward. You say nothing. Because there's nothing to say. Just the quiet understanding that something has shifted. Again. And the pineapple. Still unspoiled. Still waiting. The philosophers arrive in matching boots. 3 of them. Sent by the Society of Rational Inquiry in Amsterdam. Robes trimmed with silver thread. Letters of introduction. An aura of polite condescension. They've come for the pineapple. We've reviewed the correspondences, says the tall one. We've analyzed the logs, says the round one. We've brought instruments, says the thin one, holding up a velvet case that clicks ominously. You nod. Offer them tea. They decline. Of course they do. Their observations begin the next morning. Temperature readings. Core density measurements. Sketches taken from 3 angles. They ask questions you didn't know could be asked of fruit. Has it exhibited behavioral consistency across lunar cycles? What are its sympathies under duress? Does it recognize itself in mirrors? You blink. They do not. Peter stands in the corner of the archive room, arms crossed, trying not to snort. You don't bother hiding yours. Still, you let them work. Because deep down, you want to know, too. You want an answer. Even if it's strange. Especially if it's strange. By the second day, the philosophers stop measuring. They start theorizing. It may be a mnemonic device, the tall one says. An artifact of divine geometry, offers the round one. A test, whispers the thin one. You ask, a test of what? She doesn't answer. Just presses her palm gently to the crate. And smiles. They call for more equipment. An astrolabe. A prism set. A small vial labeled etheric salt. You provide none of it. Peter won't even let them near the cellar without supervision now. Last time someone brought a prism in here. He mutters. We lost a window in 3 hours. You don't ask what he means. You've learned. On the 4th day, the philosophers request time alone with the fruit. You decline. They insist. You decline again. They quote Enlightenment principles. You quote local ordinance. Eventually, they settle for an hour in silence. Supervised, while sitting 6 feet away. They call it meditative inquiry. You call it Thursday. That night, you find one of their journals. Unlabeled. Tucked under a ledger. Inside, drawings of pineapples. Dozens of them. All slightly different. Some split open like flowers. Others like clockwork. One shaped like a spiral staircase, leading upward into mist. And a phrase, written over and over, looping along the margins. The fruit remembers. You close the book. Gently. Return it. Say nothing. The next morning, they announce their departure. No conclusions, No summary. Only one quiet remark from the tall one, just before boarding their ship. We'll be back. You nod. Watch them go. Then find yourself wondering, do they mean them? Or us? Peter suggests taking a break. You laugh so hard you choke on your tea. Still, he presses. You haven't left the compound in weeks. Neither have I. We should walk. So you do. Just past the mango grove. To the edge of the harbor. You sit on a bench made of driftwood and stare out at the water. It smells clean. Neutral. Like before. You miss that smell. You don't say it aloud. But Peter does. I think it's too late. He says. You don't ask for what. You already know. Back at the archive cellar, the fruit remains unchanged. Still golden. Still whole. Still unervingly present. And as you close the door, you swear you hear a sound. Not a voice. Not a whisper. Just the faint, soft click of a latch. Sliding itself into place. The clerk finds you in the garden, pale and breathless. There's been a situation. You don't ask what kind. At this point, there's only ever one kind. You follow her back through the compound, past the kitchens, through the narrow hallway behind the archives, and down into the cellar. The crate is open. Not broken. Not forced. Just open. The fruit is gone. Not a rind. Not a drip. Not a single sticky fingerprint. Gone. You close your eyes. Count to 10. Open them again. Still gone. Peter arrives seconds later. Sees the empty crate. Doesn't speak. He just sits down beside it. And stays there. The administrator convenes an emergency meeting. No one's quite sure what to call it. A robbery. A miracle. A logistical hiccup. Someone suggests spontaneous departure. It sticks. You assign guards to the cellar. But it feels performative now. Like locking the door after a ghost has already left the room. The rumors start by noon. A man at the docks saw a pineapple walking. A child found a golden crown half, buried in the sand. A message scratched into the underside of a spice crate reads, "Don't follow." No one admits to writing it. But everyone reads it. More than once. That night, you patrol the garden. The air is heavy. Still. As if the plants are listening too closely. You reach the place where number 4 once grew. The soil is disturbed. Fresh. You kneel. Run your fingers through the dirt. Something is there. Not a fruit. A stone. Carved into a rough spiral. You lift it gently. It hums faintly against your skin. You don't show it to anyone. Not yet. You place it in your coat pocket and return to your quarters without speaking. Sleep is no longer expected. You simply wait for morning. By the following day, the city has changed. Not visibly, but perceptibly. People speak more quietly, move more slowly. You see pineapples in more places now. Not real ones. Carvings. Paintings. Embroidered patterns. A boy selling sweets wears one on his shirt. A sailor tattoos one on his forearm. A monk carries a small brass replica on a chain. You ask him why. He says, "It keeps the voices focused." Then walks away before you can ask which voices. Peter's not in the lab anymore. He's on the roof. Every evening. sitting quietly, watching the horizon. When you ask what he's looking for, he says, something bigger. Then adds, or something small enough to fit between the stars. You let him be. You have your own work. You return to the journals. Yours. Peter's. The clerk's. Even the philosopher's you definitely weren't supposed to keep. You start to see patterns. A spiral. A repetition of certain words. Remembers. Listens. Awake. You copy them into one page. Draw a box around them. Draw a fruit around the box. Then close the notebook. You never open it again. That night, the wind shifts again. Your window creaks open on its own. A scent drifts in. Sweet. Cold. Not entirely of this place. You light a candle. It flickers once, then calms. At your doorstep, you find something small. Not a pineapple. Just one leaf. Crisp. Green. Still wet with dew. You pick it up. Hold it for a moment. Then place it in your journal. Between two blank pages. You write nothing. The silence says enough. The city is quieter now. Not silent, but muffled, like it's waiting for something. Even the birds sound hesitant, as if unsure whether they're still part of the story. You walk the market as you always do. The same stalls, the same smiles. But something's shifted in the glances, the greetings, the space between each word. You see pineapples everywhere, painted onto lanterns, carved into bench legs, baked into pastries you don't entirely trust. But not one is real. Not one is fresh. No crates arrive anymore. No fruit is harvested. And yet, the image persists, as if the idea has outlived its flesh. Peter finally speaks of the crate. Not about what was inside, but about what wasn't. There was no condensation. He says, no scent, no stain. It left. Nothing. You ask what he thinks it means. He shrugs, smiles, but not from happiness. Maybe it means we're the ones rotting. You don't respond. You just stand beside him and watch the sea. You receive a letter from Amsterdam. Again, politely worded, more insistent. They want answers now. Not just fruit. Not just notes. Answers. You don't reply. Instead, you send them a dried leaf, wrapped in silk, labeled, returned. They never write back. One evening, a child knocks on your door. She's barefoot, holding a wax tablet. Says she was told to give it to you. There's no name. Just a message, scrawled in tiny, urgent handwriting. It never left. Just changed rooms. You step outside. No one's there. You keep the tablet anyway. Hide it under your pillow, just in case. Van Noorden closes his house to guests. He claims illness, but you suspect the truth is heavier. They say he's building a room with no doors. Only one window. And that through it, you can see something. No one agrees on what. Only that it doesn't blink. Because it doesn't need to. You start seeing fewer people around the compound. Some leave. Some fade. Some simply don't answer their doors anymore. But the candles in their windows keep burning. Longer than they should. Somehow. You visit the garden. It's overgrown now. The original test plot is barely visible beneath vines and thorny leaves. You kneel beside where number 4 once stood. And you whisper, "You were right to leave." The soil is warm beneath your hand. It pulses once, then stills. You hear of a trader who tried to grow a pineapple from seed. No crate. No imported slip. Just a single seed he claimed to find in his pocket after a dream. He buried it in silence. Watered it with rain. They say something is growing. But it doesn't look like a fruit. More like a mirror. You don't go see it. Not yet. Maybe never. There's a final drawing in Peter's notebook. Unlabeled. Unframed. Just a circle. Inside it, another circle. Inside that, a single line curling inward. And at the very center, a small mark. Not a fruit. Not an eye. Just a dot. You stare at it longer than you meant to. Then you close the book and slide it into the archive, where it belongs. One morning, you wake with a word in your head. You don't know what it means. It's not in Dutch. Not in Latin. Not even in the trade pidgin spoken on the docks. But you feel it, deep in your ribs. You breathe it once. Just once. And for the first time in months. The scent disappears. Just air. Just morning. Just you. And that feels like enough. For now. So now, here you are. Still awake. Maybe. Or maybe only just. Lying somewhere quiet. Cool sheets beneath you. The hum of night holding everything together like soft thread. You've traveled far. In your own way. Through moldy crates and whispered rumors. Across ships and gardens and markets filled with myth. All in pursuit of a fruit that was never just a fruit. And maybe never wanted to be. You've seen it become a symbol. A secret. A silent question passed from hand to hand. You've watched it rot. Vanish. Speak. Maybe. Or maybe not. Maybe the pineapple was always just sugar and water. Maybe the rest came from you. But even that, especially that, feels worth holding gently. Because in the quiet hours of history, it's not always the war or the crown or the great conquest that stays with us. Sometimes, it's the fruit that didn't blink. And the people who tried to understand it anyway. So close your eyes now. Let the humid air settle. Let your breath match the rhythm of the sea. You're not in Batavia anymore. You're here, in the hush between thoughts. And whatever followed that last pineapple, whatever shape it took, whatever name it gave itself, it's not chasing you. Not tonight. Tonight, you rest. You've done enough.